sentence, and today we're going to be talking about the problem with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Now, this is originally going to be like just an original interview of like the new Spider-Man movie, but I decided I'll just make it, basically Tom Holland's career as Spider-Man, what's wrong with it, why, a lot of people just didn't like him, and why a lot of people still don't like him as much as, the other two Spider-Man. Now, slowly he's becoming a lot of, people's favorite. I would say more casual audiences who aren't really comic book fans or don't really play the games. Just casual people, and obviously a fuck ton of kids probably love Tom Holland now. After all, numbers don't lie, and he damn near made more than Infinity War, and he's close to rival Endgame in the amount of money he made as Spider-Man. Marvel is clearly not going to let Tom Holland go. He's one of the only few characters they have that has a fuck ton of VIP and a lot of ways they can make money. So Tom Holland's probably going to stay Spider-Man for a really long time to come. It's going to be a minute before they kill him and probably try to replace him with Miles Morales. But I would say the more, Spider-Man fans don't really like him as much as the original Spider-Man. If you go online, a lot of YouTubers are expressing that they don't really like this movie because of the, let's just say, non-spider elements that was in it. Also, the movie had a lot of false promises as well. We saw in the opening trailer that Spider-Man was going up against Tarantula. We heard a rumor that Tombstone was going to be in the movie. He actually was in the movie. He's Scorpion. He was fighting against, his actual Spider-Man lore and villains. And then literally in the first 2 seconds, they literally skipped all of that. And then he just fought against mind control idiots until he eventually got to Jean Grey. Which, the fight scenes were cool. I will give it that. But the villains were just being mind controlled, and Scorpion, the only villain that did want to kill Spider-Man, was just mind controlled the whole time, so he had no investment in the actual battle. And he just beat up against a bunch of mind controlled enemies, and until he eventually got to Jean Grey. Most of them were good guys, mind control, and they only fought against the Hand, and the Hand were in this movie for absolutely no fucking reason. I don't know much about the Hand, to be honest. I know they're a big thing in Daredevil and the Punisher, but apparently they're like this Illuminati villain type organization, and they got dumbled down to basically be an extreme right version of the Suicide Squad, since they were captured by Damage Control and forced to help. So Spider-Man did all the cool shit basically off screen. It would have been, and the problem with Jean Grey being an antagonist in this movie is just the whole problem with Tom Holland's Spider-Man to begin with. This is the first movie I watched where Tom Holland actually felt like a version of Spider-Man. For the past 4 movies he was in, his own 2 movies, and then Infinity War and Endgame, and then Civil War if you want to count that, he's never felt like Spider-Man. Aside from Civil War, when he was really just helping out Iron Man and the other heroes, he never really felt like, a version of Spider-Man. He always felt like Iron Man Jr. A lot of people, even the Tom haters, like the first movie because it was about him, learning to be apart from Iron Man, doing shit on his own. But like I said, he didn't make his own costume, and all of the high-tech shit he got was from Iron Man. It wasn't from He didn't make it. He didn't make that shit. He was basically getting his handheld the entire, fucking movie, and literally said he needs a suit to be Spider-Man. The guy with spider powers needs a suit to be a hero. This, it's a very, it's just a lot of very dumb shit. So it was about him, learning to be individual hero, and becoming his own man and being Spider-Man essentially. But then the second movie gets here, and then in Infinity War, he immediately dons the Iron Spider suit, when obviously he was going to wear it anyway. There's no fucking way they were going to allow him to wear that suit. So he's literally Iron Man's sidekick for the first 2 movies before, Spider-Man 2 comes out. Spider-Man 2 comes out, and Mysterio is pretty much just a fucking Iron Man villain. Pretty much. He's evil because of Iron Man. His whole vendetta against Iron Man, it's about them trying to get control of these glasses that Iron Man made. And when he finally makes his own suit, which is supposed to be a very triumphant moment, they're playing fucking Iron Man music in the background. This is basically just the Iron Man movie with Spider-Man, and the entire plot is literally just Iron Man. And even, there's a lot of innumerable shit like Happy Season on Iron Man, you're never going to be Iron Man. Like, some shit like that. Like, it makes it sound like they want Peter Parker to be the next Iron Man, even though he's literally not supposed to be his own thing, which is Spider-Man, which has nothing to do with iron and shit. But yeah, Spider-Man 2 was essentially just a fucking Iron Man movie, but Tom Holland was just in it and he was doing cool shit. Mysterio was pretty much just turned into an Iron Man villain, despite him being one of Spider-Man's, antagonist. He's pretty much just an Iron Man villain that they turned him into. Mysterio is very lame to begin with, to be honest with you, so I don't really care about the backstory they gave him. But again, you have to understand that these were real life years. For 4 years, he was basically just Iron Boy Jr. With the exception of his first ever movie, Onward On Net, all we saw him was that he was a sidekick to Spider-Man, a sidekick to Iron Man, and when he finally got a second movie, he was pretty much just, it was the Iron Man plot with Spider-Man, and like Iron Man was the reason the entire thing was even fucking happening. And I know it was literally after he died, so you can have him give some closure to him, just, go to his grave and visit him and do some shit like that. But after that, bro, that's it. The entire movie had to do with Fireman. Now, Spider-Man No Way Home is more of a tradition. This is when Tom Holland was slowly starting to feel like actual Spider-Man. He was still using Iron Man tech and nanotech and all this other bullshit with Tony Stark. But, it didn't really matter too much because the other two real Spider-Man got involved. And they helped Tom Holland figure the whole situation out. Plus, when Aunt May died, that was a pretty emotional scene. He finally got a villain that can not only fight him physically, but challenge him mentally. It was really cool. My only problem with this is that it wasn't his villain. It was Tobey's villain. So he has that thing going on where his villains are really just other people's villains. He's just fighting them. Like, Tom Holland is always cleaning up somebody's mess. He's never like fighting villains in his own scene, or own area. They always have a connection to some other hero. It can't just be him. But yeah, the only problem with this is, again, it's more of a nitpick, but again, it's really cool that he got a villain that fucked him up mentally, but this isn't really his villain, it's Tobey's villain. He just happened to be fighting him, and he fucked up his life too. But yeah, it was really cool to see this team. I have no complaints here. This is the first time Tom Holland started to feel like more of a traditional Spider-Man, and he was doing shit and making his own gadgets and creating his own plans. He was finally becoming a true independent superhero. And after the movie was over, they make people forget about Peter Parker and, make him become like a more traditional Spider-Man. So in this movie, up until now, Spider-Man, what was it called? I forgot what the movie was called. I literally forgot what the movie was called. But in the new Spider-Man movie, he finally feels like a more traditional version of Spider-Man. In this movie, Tom Holland is fucking awesome. I won't even lie to you. He makes his own web shooters. He makes his own tech. And when he has a heart-to-heart with Jean Grey, the villain of the movie, he talked no jutsu, and instead of flashing back to fucking Iron Man, he flashed back to Aunt May, somebody who's connected to his story, and, his whole world. So he defeated all of the villains in the rest of this movie using, his own personal lore in his past and the technology and his own fucking powers. And him getting organic women and mutating is so fucking cool. But here's the problem with, this movie. The problem with the new Spider-Man movie is that all of the Spider-Man shit, because fans have been dying to see him to be actually Spider-Man, not Iron Boy Jr. or some fucking sidekick, be his own man, be his own hero. And he finally is. And he didn't really do any traditional Spider-Man shit. Aside from the first movie with Vulture, all of the fights he's been in has just been the result of the Avengers or Iron Man. He's pretty much fighting against other people's villains. It doesn't really feel like he has a rose gallery of his own. And this is fucking insane because Spider-Man has, to me, the best rose gallery. Like when it comes to Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, he's one of the few heroes that has a very, extensive rose gallery. And, he has some of the best villains, like, ever. And they decide to use the lamest ones, Mysterio and Vulture, for the first two movies. And then when it came to the Sinister Six, it's just, they're just other niggas' villains. He hasn't really fought any of his own villains. And, Tarantula, The Hand, Tombstone, Scorpion, they're all in this movie and they play second fiddle. Like, literally, they play second fiddle to fucking Jean Grey. So instead of fighting his own villains, like, if Tombstone and Scorpion were in this movie would have been fucking amazing. But no, they decide to highlight all of his villains in favor of Jean fucking Grey. Jean fucking Grey kind of ruins this movie for a lot of people because they want to see Spider-Man fight against his own villains. Finally the Iron Man shit is dead. Like the Iron Man connection, like I watched this movie, Iron Man has nothing to do with this movie. Spider-Man is finally his own fucking hero. He's finally Spider-Man. And instead of fighting against his own villains, he's gonna be fighting against the X-Men's problems, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. The emotional, tension between Spider-Man and Jean Grey is fucking awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I have a soul. Like, I felt something when him and Jean Grey and Spider-Man were going through. Like, it was really cool seeing Spider-Man talking to her. But I feel like this movie just came out at a bad time because Tom Holland is finally Spider-Man now, and he's not doing any Spider-Man shit. He's just fighting, dealing with X-Men shit now. All the cool shit that would have been way better to see him do is done off screen. Like him fighting Tombstone, Tarantula, The Hand, Scorpion. All of this shit would have been way fucking cooler. But no, these things literally just go off screen and he just fights against fucking Jean Grey, the Hulk, and the Punisher's in here for some reason. And for some reason, the Hand is here too. Like, the Hand are in here for the love of the game. I have no idea why the fuck they put the Hand here. This is a review of the movie, so the Hand are here pretty much for no fucking reason. Like, they do absolutely nothing of importance. They're just extra enemies for Spider-Man to fight. And the action is good, but Spider-Man doesn't fight any one-on-one battles with a villain that can actually fucking fight him. He's just fighting against a very semi-controlled threat. So he fights against the Hulk. And then Hulk wasn't technically mind control, but he just fought against a raging Hulk who inevitably just gets talked down as Hulk always does. And then he fights against Scorpion, but Scorpion is mind control, and Scorpion is no one on his own. The fight between him and Scorpion is kind of cool, but it's just downplayed because this is his first time, not his first time, but his several times fighting Scorpion in this universe, as they've implied, and Spider-Man has already figured out his weaknesses and just fucking destroyed them. And then we got cheated the fuck out. Like, basically, the movie, the reason why a lot of people complaining why they don't like this movie is because because of the trailer, it was this bunch of false fucking promises. We saw all these cool Spider-Man villains in here, and instead they decided to make Jean Grey, a person that has nothing to do with Spider-Man, the main fucking villain. And it's just very irritating. All of Spider-Man's lore seemingly got pushed to the side to hype up more shit that has nothing to do with him. His two villains were basically were just Vulture was more of a Spider-Man villain, but Mysterio was just a nigga that Iron Man fucked over. And Mysterio is an Iron Man villain in this universe. He just fought Spider-Man. Same thing with the No Way Home. These aren't his villains. These are just other people's villains. Like, Tom Holland is always cleaning up somebody's mess. You know what I mean? He doesn't have any villains of his own to fight. And when he could have his own villain to fight, they decide to fuck them over for fucking Jean Grey. Like, if this was Tobey's movie, then this would be, or Andrew's movie. Like, if Andrew and Tobey were in the Marvel Universe, and this was their fourth movie, then this would be a lot better. Andrew Garfield fought against villains that can physically fight him. He fought against Lizard, Electro. Tobey Maguire, he fought against 4 villains that could physically fight him and mentally fuck him up. Like, they did plenty of Spider-Man shit. So for their movies to be introducing other aspects of Marvel would be better. But Tom Holland didn't do any Spider-Man shit at all. Aside from his first movie, he's pretty much just been Iron Man's sidekick, or he's fighting other people's villains. He doesn't fight any villains of his own. And when he finally breaks away from all that, the first person they decide to put him up against is fucking Jean Grey from the fucking X-Men. And you know what I mean? He beats her through talking no jutsu, and she can't mind control him for some reason. They don't explain why Spider-Man is basically just immune to, her body solving him. Hulk is immune too because, Hulk is a more dominant personality, but, he's a rage monster, so it becomes a problem later. I assume it's because of Peter's spider sense, or maybe the Doctor Strange spell has something to do with it. They don't really explain why Spider-Man can't be mind controlled by Jean Grey. I have no idea why. But I guess it's pretty cool, and that makes Spider-Man slightly more aura. We also got promises of Spider-Man turning into a giant tarantula spider, but, because of, and this is another reason, Disney is kind of like, they're kind of becoming a bit too lighthearted. They're becoming a little too light. First of all, now the Punisher isn't as dumbed down as I thought he was going to be in this movie. The Punisher is still a killing psychomaniac. As a matter of fact, because of, his bloodlust and his just, need to kill the enemy. He actually almost kills Spider-Man because he shoots a bullet that was meant for the enemy, but it hits Spider-Man instead. You know what I mean? So Punisher is still in character, but the way Punisher is treated, they basically treat Punisher as more of a comic relief character. And even though Spider-Man, it's not out of character for Spider-Man to work with the Punisher, because Spider-Man is okay for working with heroes that kill. He works with Wolverine, Black Widow, Punisher, and the Avengers in this universe are fucking like, they don't take no shit, and they were catching fucking bodies. So Spider-Man works with killers before, so him working with Punisher isn't, out of character, and this is all the time in the comic books. Well, how the fuck is Punisher going around in broad daylight? Why aren't the police arresting Punisher? It feels like Punisher can just do whatever the fuck he wants, and the police aren't really doing anything. They just treat Punisher as another hero, but he, like I said, he kills. So I don't know, it's fucking weird. And like, Punisher is saying outside, but for Spider-Man, then they do. Like, a lot of people don't like the way the Punisher is treated because logically this doesn't make any fucking sense. Punisher is a mass fucking murderer, so why the fuck are the cops just casually letting him drive around and shit? It makes no sense. You know what I mean? And Punisher Mortified just gets treated as like more of a, comic relief character. Like, he does a lot of funny, cool shit, you know what I mean? He does, you know what I mean? Like, they just basically Disneyfied the Punisher. Like, he still kills and shit, so, you can't get rid of that part. But, he's literally outside of a hospital dancing around as fucking Spider-Man. And a lot of people that just got done watching, I didn't watch Punisher Final Kill, but apparently he decides to become the Punisher again, kills a bunch of mob bosses, does Punisher shit, and is on a run from the police, yet the police don't arrest him at all. It's really fucking weird, but that's more of a minor nitpick, to be honest. I'm just glad Punisher is still dropping bodies, so because in this movie he does still drop bodies. But yeah, so to wrap this up, the reason why this Spider-Man movie failed and why it's just not as good is because Tom isn't your traditional Spider-Man. And the reason why his character sucked for so long is because he shouldn't have showed up in Civil War. He should have got his own movie first. He should have got his own movie, his own suit, and then he could show up in the Marvel Universe. You know what I mean? I talk with my bird about this all the time, but he brings about in the comics, he works with other heroes all the time, and Spider-Man does occasionally fanboy out, but that's because he's been his own hero. He doesn't meet any other heroes for a while, you know what I mean? He's Spider-Man for about 1 or 2 years before he starts meeting other heroes and having these, awesome team-ups. So I don't mind heroes helping him out, giving him gadgets, and all the other shit, because he's proven that he can be his individual hero first, you know what I mean? I just wanted Tom to basically be his own individual hero first, and then he can get help from all those other people, you know what I mean? Like, Tom doesn't have, think about it, Andrew and Tobey Maguire have their own Norman Osborns, their own Eddie, you know what I mean? They have their own villains and shit. Tom doesn't really have his own universe that he can really build off of. That might be the reason why he's always fighting against basically non-Spider-Man threats for the past couple of years now, because he doesn't have his own universe. He doesn't have a Norman Osborn. His side characters, from high school, and he just doesn't have a traditional Spider-Man universe, and because of that, his universe is struggling to this day. But like I said, it would have been cool if Tom can just fight against his own villains, fight against his own bad guys, and we get another thing is that too many characters. I thought this sound, but Sony has this weird contract with Disney where Spider-Man has his own movie. Other characters have to be in there. I think that's another reason why his movies always kind of fail. Spider-Man 2 was the only, I didn't like it. At least in that movie, that was more of a Spider-Man movie. Tom teamed up with absolutely no one in Spider-Man 2. I wish his movies were really like that, to be honest. But it just seems like a character, when Nick Fury was in it, but I just wish there was a Spider-Man movie where no other character showed up. You know what I mean? I just wanted to be about Spider-Man and only Spider-Man. You know, too many other characters be showing up in his movies. But yeah, I'm basically just repeating myself. So the point is, I'm going to reiterate this and we're going to end the video. But Tom Holland was never really a traditional Spider-Man to begin with. He was missing a lot of shit. He doesn't have Uncle Ben. He doesn't have a Norman Osborn. He doesn't have a Harry Osborn. His Flash Thompson fucking sucks. Like, they just kind of, it seems like they just kind of scrapped away Spider-Man. So they just, like, they were in such a rush to put Spider-Man in the fucking movie. They just said, fuck his lore and fuck his setup. We're just going to put him in the movie, and then it kind of fucked them over, and then they had to slowly, you know, try to build up off of, you know, what they gave him. And they didn't really give him any satisfying lore or give him any of that shit. Like I said, he's not a traditional Spider-Man. He doesn't have a Norman Osborn. He doesn't have a Harry Osborn. He doesn't have the typical multiple love interests. Like, he doesn't have any, he doesn't have any Spider-Man shit until finally. Now, he's just now becoming a more traditional, like more of a Spider-Man now. And the first thing they made him do is make him fight Jean Grey. The people that he fights against are literally just Iron Man villains, or it's just other people's threats. Like in Spider-Man 1, it was the only time he fought a villain that, you know, kind of had some, like Vulture had his own backstory, and he did have something to do with the Avengers, but you know, it was just him building tech for companies and them screwing him over, so he became his own villain and fought against Spider-Man. You know, that was cool. In the second movie, Mysterio was pretty much just the Iron Man villain, but Spider-Man was in it. And then Infinity War and Endgame, he was just a sidekick. And then No Way Home, he fights against other Spider-Man. He fights against the Sinister Six, but they weren't his villains, they were other people's villains. And then in his own movie, he's fighting against fucking Jean Grey. So, yeah, that's the main reason why, you know, the new Spider-Man movie just kind of sucked, because he doesn't, like, all of his, it's like a trend, like they don't really care about his lore that much. He has his own villains and shit, but they don't really use it. His own lore, but they don't use it at all. So Tom isn't really your traditional Spider-Man. And he's different, but he's different in a bad way. Like, he's just missing a lot of aspects that make Spider-Man, Spider-Man. You know what I mean? One thing I will say about this movie is that the action is really good. I like how, even though we got cut out of Human Spider, because, and this is why I say Disney was Disneyfying everything, and I feel like greed has a part to play in this as well, because the original concept for this movie would have been fucking dope. Like, he was going to be the Human Spider. It was supposed to be like way longer, and like he was supposed to turn into a giant human spider, but they scrapped it because Disney felt that, you know, it would scare children or whatever if Spider-Man turned to a giant spider, and you know, they want to make their fucking money. Plus, the story is just guaranteed. The story is so fucking Twilight and so fucking, like, it is designed to obviously pull out your heartstrings, you know what I mean? Even I felt similar to bit, like, you know, they fucked Peter's life, and Jean Grey was a villain because he took her sister, you know what I mean? So, like, her and Spider-Man were going through the same shit, how they were both being hunted down because they were different. Yeah, like, basically, Spider-Man was Gaara, Spider-Man was Naruto, and Jean Grey was Gaara. That's basically the best way to explain it. And, you know, it makes you feel something, but because they told that obvious fucking cheap-ass storyline, they're going to get a lot of casual audiences to make them a lot of money, because a lot of people are going to sympathize with that bullshit. And another thing is, I want to, like, this is another nitpick I have with the movie, but it would have been cool if Spider-Man had, like, an actual evil fucking villain for once. Again, I'm so sick of this trend where basically the villain is a nigga that didn't get hugged by his mom because he wants to destroy the entire world, and then he gets talk no jutsu and basically becomes a fucking good guy at the end. I am so sick of that. Like, oh my god. Jean Grey had the potential to be one of the coolest villains ever, but because she's a hero in the comics, and this was obviously an introduction, that, you know, they had to give her a pussy ass back. So it was necessary for her because she has to be a hero later. But, you know, it just sucks that the villain was that another fucking sympathetic, basically a fucking loser that didn't get hugged by his mom, or, you know, got bullied or got fucked over or whatever, and that's why they became evil. The real villain in this movie is, I don't know his name, but Damage Control. They're basically an organization that hunts down superhero people and, you know, take them out of the game, essentially. But they're not powerful, they're not strong, just another evil corporation, and, you know, a bunch of just, you know, goons that Spider-Man can just take out very easily, which he very did in the fucking movie, at the final part of the movie. It kind of felt like, you know, Batman with, Batman 2021 or 2022, I think, with Patterson, where, you know, for his first movie, it was like a Batman show where Batman usually fights against corrupt mob bosses and fights against, you know, goons and stronger goons, and he hardly fights a villain that can actually fight him one-on-one. It's one of the reasons why I like Spider-Man villains better than Batman villains, because Spider-Man villains can actually somewhat fight him on an even playing field, as with, you know, fucking him over mentally. But yeah, that was another thing I got fucking sick of, you know what I mean? Like, so the reason why Jean Grey sucks as a villain in this movie anyway is because we're sick and tired of seeing these fucking sympathetic, crybaby ass villains. So, you know, that doesn't help. And we want to see Spider-Man do Spider-Man things, you know what I mean? We want to see him fight against Dr. Octopus, you know, we want to see him fight against the Green Goblin, or the Lizard, or, you know, Tombstone, or they didn't even do Ronnie. We want to see him fight against Kraven, Morbius. He has so many fucking villains, and they don't use them for some reason. They play second fiddle to a nigga every fucking time. Like, they alter Mysterio's backstory to make him like Iron Man, you know what I mean? And even Vulture has something to do with the Avengers. It's always some other hero, and Spider-Man is always cleaning up other people's messes, but he hardly fights anyone that just wants to kill him and only him. You know, he's just in the way, basically. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. You know what I mean? It's just really disappointing that Tom Holland didn't get to do Spider-Man shit. One thing I will say is that Tom Holland is finally fucking Spider-Man now. So one thing I will say, you know what I mean? Like, he feels like Spider-Man at least. And he has his own gadgets. And I think he's surpassed all of them, to be honest with you. I'm pretty sure Tom is stronger than Toby now. You know what I mean? I know they had a crossover recently, but with his whole little devil trigger he had in moving him, evolving and getting stronger, and the feats he has, I'm pretty sure he's the strongest and fastest Spider-Man. But that's besides the point. But yeah, Tom at least feels like Spider-Man now. But, you know, instead of the movie embracing Spider-Man lore and his villains and his history, they just decide to just tell a cheap ass story where he sympathizes with a girl because they both have fucked up backstories, which, you know, the world is going to sympathize with. So like I said, casual audiences are going to love this movie. It's going to make them a lot of fucking money, but real Spider-Man fans are extremely disappointed, and we're just mad that Tom doesn't do any Spider-Man shit. He doesn't fight against any of his villains. All of his villains are products of other people, and like, we don't want any more Spider-Man movies either. Like, why the fuck does Hulk? Why is Nick Fury? Why are all these characters in a fucking Spider-Man movie, bro? I don't mind team-ups and shit, but I just wish Spider-Man could just be in the movie on it. Another thing I think is fucking up his movies is that other people have to be in it. Like, he was getting a movie about Spider-Man and just Spider-Man, no one else. Can he please not fight against an Iron Man villain or fucking Jean Grey, or he fights against somebody else's villain? Can he just fight against somebody that wants to kill him and only him? And can they be evil as shit and, you know, he can't fucking talk him and juicing him at the end? Like, is that so hard to ask for? But yeah, I'm basically just speaking to myself. That's basically the reason, or Tom's problem. You know what I mean? He's never been a traditional Spider-Man. He doesn't follow Spider-Man's lore. Like, you know what I mean? It seems like Spider-Man's lore is just used as just something to punch in the face, while the real villain, who's going to be Jean Grey, or, you know, some other villain is going to be fucking over Spider-Man. And Marvel's been doing that for a while because Sam Wilson fought against Hulk villains. And, you know, is this a trend that the heroes aren't fighting against their own villains and are fighting against other people? I don't know. Marvel's weird, and I don't know who the fuck is writing that shit. I feel like this movie was basically made just to me. Like, it was just a cash grab, to be honest, because the story is so just... It's damn near scummily too, because it's told in a way where people are obviously going to care about it, you know what I mean? They know how to, like, get the casual audiences on their side. This is really just for casual Spider-Man fans, not for, like, actual Spider-Man fans. But that's all I wanted to say. You know, this is what I feel was wrong, the problem with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, the problem of how he is in the movie. While I feel like he'll never be a traditional Spider-Man. Like, Tom is easily the worst Spider-Man, to be honest with you, in terms of story. He doesn't have his own lore. He doesn't have his own villains. He barely has a support cast. And, you know, his entire universe and lore are just pushed to the side to fit other people. You know what I mean? Like again, Mysterio was the Iron Man movie with him in it. This movie was a Jean Grey with Spider-Man in it. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't want to keep restating the same thing over and over again. But yeah, like the video if you enjoyed it, and Dev send it out.